Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, South Africa's opposition agrees to work together against the ruling ANC in Parliament. The agreement between the Democratic Alliance and economic freedom fighters falls, though, short of a coalition. Also, the South Sudanese military executes 2 soldiers on murder charges, despite earlier denying claims that its troops raped civilians in Juba last month. It says it is investigating the allegations. And hold the cheese and the milk and the meat. Vegans of South Africa say that just because they've ditched animal proteins doesn't mean they have to do without. We head along to dine out in style. But first, South Africa's 2 main opposition parties have agreed to work together to block the ruling ANC from taking majority control in Parliament. The Democratic Alliance and the leftist economic freedom fighters are taking advantage of the losses the ANC suffered in some of the country's biggest cities in local elections earlier this month. Now, it was its worst electoral performance since the end of apartheid. But despite the pact between the Democratic Alliance and the EFF, their leaders have stopped short of a formal coalition, saying that ideological differences are too great. For more on this, we're joined by Jane Flanagan. She's in Pretoria. Jane, so there'll be a partnership but no coalition. What's the difference?
Well, I think another word for it is a marriage of convenience. There's not a lot that unites these parties. One is predominantly favoured by the white population of South Africa, the Democratic Alliance. The other one is the rabble-rousing, radical EFF movement, which has really appealed to the disenfranchised black South Africans for whom life really hasn't improved since the end of apartheid. And the one thing that unites them is their mutual hostility towards the ANC, and most particularly the leadership of Jacob Zuma. I think if the ANC had been prepared to sacrifice Jacob Zuma, then the situation today might have been a bit different. As it is, the differences between the 2 parties is too great, and all they can agree on is that they will collaborate to make sure the ANC stays isolated. But it does mean that big, major spending decisions, policy decisions will have to be negotiated on a case-by-case basis, which could be rather frustrating for all parties.
So how big a problem is this marriage of convenience between the EFF and the DA for the ANC?
Well, the ANC is looking very isolated. It's looking impotent. It's looking irrelevant at the moment in the powerhouse that is Johannesburg, the economic hub of South Africa, and also in the administrative capital, Pretoria, where the DA and the EFF have agreed to make sure that they have no say or any control over any budget. But of course, this rather piecemeal agreement between the 2 parties that they will deal with issues on a case-by-case basis may lead to frustrating delays in any improvement in service delivery. The one thing I think that has given the ANC such a shooing at these polls is the fact that they've been so slow to improve the lives of people. And if the DA and the EFF between them don't improve things for voters who voted against the ANC, then that could be a way back in for the ANC in the next big ballot date, which is in 3 years' time. So unless the DA and EFF make this marriage of convenience work, the ANC could not really be out of business after all.
Right, thanks very much. Jane Flanagan there for us in Cape Town, not Pretoria. Well, 2 South Sudanese soldiers have been executed by firing squad after having been found guilty of murder in the northwestern town of Wau. 19 others have been arrested for offences ranging from murder to looting in Juba during fighting between troops loyal to President Salva Kiir and those backing his former number 2 rebel and former rebel chief, Riek Machar. The government rejected claims that soldiers raped women outside of a UN base whilst peacekeepers stood by. However, Juba does say that it is investigating. After 2 years of civil war, the country's new vice president has warned his predecessor, Riek Machar, to stay out of politics if peace is to be given a chance.
South Sudan's new vice president, Taban Dengai, made some strong statements during his trip to Kenya. He said his predecessor, Riek Machar, a fellow Nuer and former friend, should stay out of politics for now. Tensions between Machar and President Salva Kiir erupted into clashes once again last month.
If you think you cannot stay in Juba, let him come to Kenya or to any of the African countries and let him organize his political party and let him wait for the election 2018.
It's still unclear how much support Guy has among the Nuer factions. Some see his replacement as a betrayal of Machar. He left Juba with his troops last month. Machar said he would return when an international body sets up a buffer force between his fighters and those supporting Kiir. On Wednesday, Guy also said that soldiers loyal to the opposition would be integrated into the army before May.
We have to start uniting these forces as of now. We have started also sending supplies so that the troops could gather as soon as possible. This is a big achievement and, to us because, as I said earlier, what brought the crisis is the existence of parallel armies in the country.
The army has been much criticized for its actions during the clashes in Juba last month. It's been accused of killing a journalist and raping foreign women during a rampage in a hotel. This week, Ban Ki-moon said he was launching an investigation into allegations UN peacekeepers failed to prevent the attack against the hotel.
It's been a tough day for Nigeria's PDP. Its annual convention had to be scrapped on Wednesday after police stopped the party's delegates from entering the venue in Port Harcourt. That was because of a court ruling cancelling the event brought by a faction within the party. Another high court had given it the go-ahead. Now, splits have deepened ever since it lost last year's general elections. Prior to that, it had governed Nigeria for 15 years. Some officials did manage to meet on Wednesday elsewhere to vote to extend the tenure of its interim leader, Senator Ahmed McCarthy, for another year. I'm joined now by the PDP's former national legal advisor. Victor, thanks very much for speaking to us. Now, will some of the members of the party see the hastily reorganised convention held on Wednesday as being invalid?
Not just some members of the party, all members of the party, but the few acolytes of Senator Ali Modu Sharif consider the national convention that held today in Port Harcourt as valid and the decisions reached at that convention as valid. Bear in mind that the PDP is a large party but comprises various organs and segments. At the convention today in Port Harcourt, despite the closure of the original venue by the security agencies, which we all believe is actually the intervention by the APC-led federal government using Senator Ali Modu Sharif as an avenue to be able to stop us from meeting. At the convention that held today at the alternative venue, all governors of the PDP were present, all members of the National Assembly were present, all state chairmen were present except the one state chairman of the state of Borno, which is Ali Modu Sharif's home state. All members of the respective state houses of assembly in all the states in Nigeria were present. All members of the Board of Trustees were present. So, indeed, not just some members of the party, but the mainstream party recognizes that the convention held today in Port Harcourt, despite the attempt and effort of the APC-led federal government to seal it off, the party having obtained an order from the Federal High Court here in Port Harcourt for the convention to go on and for the police to provide security for the convention.
Look now at some news in brief, but before that, we head to Democratic Republic of Congo, where 2 people were killed on Wednesday as demonstrators clashed with police in the eastern town of Beni. Protesters accused the government of doing little to protect them after around 51 people were killed in a massacre last weekend. Thomas Nicolon brings us more.
The people of Beni are not done expressing their anger. Today, hundreds took the streets and erected barricades. The police had to fire tear gas and even had to fire gunshots in the air to scatter the protesters. At least 5 people were injured and 1 person died. The people of Beni are angry because they believe the government is not doing enough to protect them. Since 2014, more than 500 civilians have been killed in that region. I spoke to the government spokesman just a few minutes ago, and he told me that he has heard today what the population of Beni has to say, but he wants to remind them that the government is responsible for homeland security, but it is not guilty of what happened on Saturday. According to the government, the Allied Democratic Forces are guilty. That is a rebel group from Uganda. A few members of this rebel group are in jail here in Kinshasa. A few other members are in jail in Beni, and according to the government, their trial will start on Saturday.
Thomas Nicolon there for us. Well, as promised, news in brief now. Witnesses report seeing Zimbabwean officers beating protesters at the latest anti-government rally in Harare on Wednesday. Police also fired tear gas on the crowds in a bid to get them to disperse. Demonstrators blame President Robert Mugabe for the country's dire economic fortunes and are calling for him to step down. At least one person was shot dead in the Malian capital as police opened fire during protests over the arrest of a talk show host critical of the government. At least one supporter of radio presenter Ras Bath reports seeing the bodies of 3 victims. Bath was arrested on Monday before hosting a show called Cards on the Table, in which he criticised the country's military. Under pressure from pro-government troops, Islamic State group extremists in the Libyan city of Sirte launched a wave of suicide attacks on Wednesday. Several fighters loyal to the government of National Accord were killed in 9 bombings across the city as the extremists made a failed bid to hold a central district in Sirte. US airstrikes are backing a 3-month Libyan campaign to drive the jihadists out of the city. And a mass yellow fever vaccination campaign began on Wednesday in Kinshasa. It's in response to one of the worst outbreaks of the disease in the region in decades. More than 400 people have died of it since December. Health workers are dealing with a suspected 6,000 cases in DRC and Angola. Angola started its own emergency vaccination campaign earlier this week. Well, finally, would-be vegans in South Africa are being treated to more and more choice of fare as the number of people choosing to ditch eating animal protein grows year on year. Our correspondents headed out to sample what's on offer.
This is one of the most fashionable restaurants in Cape Town. It's called Plant, and that's what it's all about. 100% vegan. No meat, no fish, no milk, and of course no eggs. No animal products at all. But with soya, one can make just about anything, including delicious omelets.
You know, it's hard to find a warm breakfast when you're vegan because obviously it's eggs and bacon. So, you know, vegans are always very excited when they can come in somewhere and there's French toast and there's a scramble.
The founder of this restaurant is a trained engineer. She started this business 6 years ago to make people aware of a vegan choice.
This was an ethical decision for me to become vegan. It wasn't a health-driven decision. The impact of animal agriculture on the earth is crazy. I mean, if you look at the Amazon, 90% of the Amazon has been destroyed because of soy that they want to grow for cattle. So the footprint of a plant-based diet is just a more conscious footprint for our environment.
Aideen will soon start a catering business. She feels there is a growing demand in South Africa. In Cape Town, more and more establishments are becoming vegan-friendly. This Ethiopian restaurant is very popular. But here, no special menu is needed. Vegan food forms part of the traditional diet.
It is in the culture, it's in the tradition, it's in Ethiopian cuisine. When we fast in Ethiopia, you don't eat any animal products. We start fasting when we are 7 years old. So from then on, you just go on Wednesdays and Fridays.
So it is not difficult to adapt. Traditional Ethiopian bread is made of teff, a gluten-free cereal that originated in Ethiopia and is now grown in South Africa.
Just be creative and, just get the Ethiopian traditional food into some modern way. It can be done.
In South Africa, where there is a will, there is a way. And soon there might be an Ethiopian vegan fast food outlet in Cape Town.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Please do so again if you can. Take care.